The Light That Flew, the true story of the line that stitched a nation, a historical narrative for all ages. Prologue, The Shadow of Time. Imagine a world where time itself was a wall. It's 1858. A mother stands at the edge of the American frontier, a tiny settlement clinging to the vast, wild territory of the West. She receives a letter, its paper brittle and stained with the dust of 1,000 miles. It has traveled for 3, maybe 4 months, carried on horseback, by stagecoach, across scorching deserts and towering snow-crowned mountains. She opens it. Her eyes scan the lines of familiar, sloping handwriting. It's from her son, a young man who journeyed west a year ago, seeking gold or land or just a fresh start. The letter is a year old, written just weeks after he left, confirming his safe arrival and his boundless optimism. A smile starts to form on her face, a wave of relief washing over her heart, until she turns the page and sees the date. She realizes she hasn't heard from him in nearly a year since this letter. A year of waiting. A year of dread. What has happened in the 365 days since he wrote these cheerful words? Is he still safe? Is he alive? The paper in her hand is not news. It is an artifact of lost time. A ghost of a conversation that might have mattered months ago. She crumples the letter, the paper a dry sob in her hand. That was America. A nation ripped in two by distance, east and west. The vast empty heart of the continent, a terrifying and beautiful wilderness, separated families, fortunes, and the very idea of a unified country. The journey from New York to San Francisco took 6 months by sea, or up to 6 weeks if you risked the perilous journey of the famed Pony Express. A single message, a single crucial piece of information, moved at the speed of a galloping horse. How could a single republic committed to liberty and union survive when a simple hello or help took longer than it took to cross an ocean? The truth was, it couldn't. Something had to change. Something had to bridge that enormous, aching void of time. This is the true story of how a small, determined group of visionaries, engineers, daring riders, and rugged laborers, many of them young men and women you'd never read about in any textbook, decided to perform one of the greatest acts of national stitching the world had ever seen. They didn't use a needle and thread, or steel rails, or even bridges. They used light, invisible electric light, trapped in copper wire, to make time itself vanish. This is the tale of the transcontinental telegraph, the impossible information-bearing line that in just 111 days connected a continent and changed the world forever. Chapter 1. The Whispering Wire. The story begins not in the rugged West, but in the cluttered, dimly lit New York workshop of a portrait painter named Samuel Morse. Before the Telegraph, Morse was known for his art, but a chance encounter on a transatlantic voyage in 1832 had utterly rewired his destiny. Morse was fascinated by a conversation about electricity, the mysterious force that could travel instantly along a wire. A small spark of thought, an electric jolt genius leapt into his mind. If electricity can travel instantaneously, why can't they messages?
He spent the next decade wrestling with that simple, brilliant question. The answer wasn't just the wire, it was the language. He needed a code, a way to translate the flowing words of human thought into the rigid, simple language of the electric current, on or off. Click, clack, click, click, clack. Morse, along with his brilliant young partner Alfred Vail, invented the code of short and long signals, dots and dashes that would bear his name, Morse code. In 1844, the world got its first real glimpse of the impossible future. From the Supreme Court chamber in Washington, D.C., Morse sent the message, famously chosen by a young woman named Annie Ellensworth, "What hath God wrought?" In an instant, at a receiving station 40 miles away in Baltimore, Maryland, the answer appeared, translated from the clicks and clacks of the machine. Everything. The message that would have taken hours by horse and carriage had traveled 40 miles in a single flash of light-speed light. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Suddenly, newspapers could report on events near hours after they occurred. Stock market prices could be exchanged across state lines. Families could send word of birth or death, and the news would arrive before the mourners finished gathering. The whole eastern half of the United States, from Boston to Washington, began to knit itself together into a tighter, more informed, and faster-paced society. Telegraph lines sneaked through every town, climbing poles like vines. The lightning message was now a part of daily life. But a great empty space remained. Chapter 2. The Great Divide. While the East buzzed with electric news, the West was still locked in the age of the horse. The year is 1960. The United States is a land of two separate civilizations. Along the Atlantic coast, the telegraph made information nearly instantaneous. Past the Mississippi River, stretching for 2,000 miles to the Pacific coast, lay a vast, untamed wilderness, the Great American Desert. This land was home to towering mountains, including the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada, to blistering dry expanses like the Nevada Desert, and to millions of wild, free-roaming bison. It was also the ancestral home of powerful Indian nations who viewed the incoming lines of communication not as progress, but as an invasion. The challenge was not just distant, but sheer difficulty. The weather. Blizzards buried lines under feet of snow. Summer heat melted the gutta-percha insulation. Thunderstorms, often attracted to the tall new poles, frequently fried the instruments and splintered the wood. The wilds. Telegraph builders faced wolves, bears, rattlesnakes, and the constant threat of banditry. The supplies, poles, copper wire glass insulators had to be shipped by sea all the way round South America or hauled by wagon trains across the entire continent. The native resistance for tribes like the Sioux, the Shoshone, and the Cheyenne, the strange humming wires strung across their hunting grounds were an ominous sign. When they cut the lines, they were not destroying a curiosity. They were fighting the inevitable tie of settlement and the ruin of their way of life. The federal government knew the truth. Without fast communication, the continent could not be governed. The Civil War was brewing, and the idea of California and the Western Territories being completely cut off from Washington, D.C. was a terrifying prospect. In 1960, the fastest way to bridge the gap was the legendary Pony Express.